Welcome again to American Christian or Christian American. I'm Sean Legacy, and I'm your host. Today we're going to be talking about some sensitive topics. Well, not that I don't usually talk about sensitive topics. That's kind of the whole purpose of this channel. But we're going to be talking about some gruesome bits. If you would hit that subscribe button and join the family, and also hit the like button if you like this video. So I've got a couple of videos I'm going to show you consecutively, and then we'll talk, and then I've got one other video at the end, and we'll talk some more and finish up for the day. So let's look at those videos.
They ran train excursions and let children out of school early to attend lynchings. Before the torch was applied, the Negro was deprived of his ears, fingers, and genital parts of his body. He pleaded pitifully for his life while the mutilation was going on, but stood the ordeal of fire with surprising fortitude. Before the body was cool, it was cut to pieces, the bones were crushed into small bits, and even the tree upon which the wretch met his fate was torn up and disposed of as souvenirs. The Negro's heart was cut into several pieces, as was also his liver. Those unable to obtain the ghastly relics direct paid their more fortunate possessors extravagant sums for them. Small pieces of bone went for 25 cents, and a bit of the liver crisply cooked sold for 10 cents. As soon as the Negro was seen to be dead, there was a tremendous struggle among the crowd to secure the souvenirs. Knives were quickly produced, and soon the body was dismembered. Now I want you to look at who's in the picture. And you cannot heal what you don't understand.
When America talks about lynching, it often gets softened. Words like mob violence or acts of hate get used. But lynching was not random. It was a ritual. It was intentional. It was public terror. Black people were tortured in front of crowds. They were beaten, burned, mutilated. Their bodies were not just killed, they were desecrated. Their fingers, teeth, tongue, and body parts were taken and kept as souvenirs. Human remains placed on mantles like trophies. This is documented history. Lynching were community events. People dressed up. They brought food. They brought children. They took photographs and they turned them into postcards, mailing them to friends like keepsakes. Now, I want you to look closely at these people standing around these bodies. They are not who you've been conditioned to imagine. They're men in suits, women in dresses, children smiling. They were business owners, law enforcement, doctors, lawyers, judges, politicians, church members, respected members of society. And that's the part that matters. Because when we ask, where are they now? The truth is this: they didn't disappear. They didn't die out. They evolved. And today they sit in courtrooms handing out harsher sentences to Black people. They sit in hospitals where Black women are ignored and Black men are undertreated. They sit on police forces brutalizing Black bodies with legal protection. They sit in boardrooms writing policy. They advise administrations that roll back civil rights and protections. They sit close to power, including in the White House. The system didn't change. The methods did. So the question is not whether this threat still exists. The question is, how do we insulate ourselves? The answer is not fear. The answer is awareness and strategy. We must be in those spaces. We must become the doctors, the lawyers, the judges, the policymakers, the educators, the officers. We must own businesses, control capital, and build institutions that protect us. We must teach our children the truth, not to scare them, but to prepare them. Awareness is not paranoia. It is protection. And you cannot fight what you refuse to name, and you cannot protect what you refuse to see. They're still here, but so are we. This time, we choose power, we choose position, we choose protection. Now drop a Black fist in the comments and share this with someone who needs to hear this Black history.
This is, to me, is just sickening, horrific. But how they would take individuals accused of some minor crime most of the time, or they would make up things. Even if they had committed a crime, they would never do this to a Caucasian person. Nothing like this. I mean, there have been in the Old West, hangings and misjudgments and stuff, but nothing in comparison to how they've treated African Americans. To cut off the fingers, to cut off the ears, to cut off male genitalia. And then, all about humiliation. all about making someone feel at your mercy and then setting them on fire. And hear the screams burning in the fire, their flesh, literally the skin bubbling from burning and blistering. And then after they've died, to actually cut up the body for souvenirs. People take, like you go someplace, you have a rock for a souvenir or some type of sweater or a picture or something. They wanted the pieces of this man's body as souvenirs. What kind of sick mind does this? But this is what plagued America and still does. Maybe we don't have open lynchings like this, where they invited actually school children got out of school earlier. This is part of their education, to see someone tortured, to brutalize, to get within them a sense of violence, that it was okay if you did this to somebody who was dark-skinned. This was okay. These children's minds were actually, they were traumatized. Even though they might be smiling, it's traumatizing their minds, convincing them, twisting their mind to believe this is okay. That's what they did. Creating another generation of hateful, evil, absolutely evil people. And they came from churches. They came from all over, these people. That's not a church that follows God. They may say God. That's a church that is completely enthralled within Satan. Completely evil. That's what they did. And like the other video points out, they've evolved. So they may not be out there doing lynchings, but they do everything they can to make sure that young black males and women, but especially young black males, are put into prison for harsher sentences for anything they do. And don't forget that they created the atmosphere in the first place. The lack of education, the lack of money, unable to find jobs, crowded into neighborhoods. They created and they put drugs in the street, creating opportunities for them to mess up and then gotcha. And they put them in the system, take away their right to vote. In the meantime, if they had children, their families didn't have a father in them, creating a new ingredients for another generation to fall into the same habit. They create legislation to destroy them, to keep health care away from them, to keep educational dollars away from them. They make life harder just to keep them down. This hasn't changed. Maybe not cutting up bodies for souvenirs, but there isn't much better. It's still evil. And now, under the President Trump, and not that he's the only one, but he is so blatantly open with it, rolling back things to take away things from people, even though they didn't have many things, still didn't have, take away more opportunities, take away health care, take away education. More and more, President Trump is an evil, racist individual, and yet I see so many people make an excuse for him who say that they're Christians. I don't want to hear about your Christianity. If you call that man a Christian, or if you call that man a leader of Christianity, or you praise him as a Christian, I don't want to hear a word of what you say about God, because you have nothing to say about God because you don't know him. Not when you praise somebody who does all this evil. We're going to look at another video. This video is probably done in the 50s from looking at the video. I don't know the exact date, but I guess it was. There's a preacher in there. He makes some good points. He does use openly the N-word, but he's not saying it like he's saying it to degrade somebody, but he's saying it that other people said it. I wouldn't say it myself, but you consider the time and what he did. And listen to some of the things he said, and then we're going to talk about some more about that.
I think the Christian community has a great opportunity today to really help change the climate. You know the myth that the white man is inherently superior to the black man? This myth has plagued us for such a long time. To take these myths and to listen to the facts and perhaps to let go of them. For you and I know that it was not the white man, and it was not the white church, but it was the Negro. It was the Negro church which initiated this struggle in this quest for justice and love among men. What kind of attitudes are you sharing with others, your friends, your children, when it comes to race relations? What is your race relations vocabulary? I've heard so many Christians use the word nigger. By what we say, by how we act, we teach, we witness.
Well, thank you, Pastor Youngo. I know we have heard and seen a lot today, and we Christians need to be up and doing. I know that. Thank you.
So we saw this video about this preacher saying some things. He's talking about race relations and stuff, and he's trying to get these white people to think about where they're at. I find it interesting as we look at the audience, and a lot of these white people seem to really not be focused, paying attention. They're certainly not cheering him on. And then the lady comes up at the end, the way she says the conclusion, it's like they weren't really excited about what he was saying. But I give this man some credit, especially during the time. Again, I wouldn't use the N word. I refer to it as the N word. I don't want to actually say it. But he was talking about how other Christians, he's heard them use that word. And so he's trying to make a point here. Now, he deserves all the credit. What else he did, I don't know. But by looking at this, he deserves some credit. The question is, what kind of response do you think he got? Maybe he had a couple of people who agreed with him. But I just wonder how many people cautioned him, told him that, he shouldn't be talking about that, or, he's wrong or stuff. Because really, that's what the infection is in the church today. It really is a constant infection that we've got. There have been many times where we had, well, I don't know about many because there's not enough, but there's been some white preachers who stood up and talked about this stuff, and they had a portion of the congregation leave. And if they kept talking about it, sometimes they got down to a small congregation. Good. Because if you are trying to be sincere, if you really want to do what's right as a minister, and you're Caucasian, you're a white church, if you really want to do what's right, you got to clear the house. With all those people who really don't want to serve God, who want to maintain racist agenda, they need to leave. And when you get down to a small group of people, you can actually find out who you can grow with. You don't need to, you got to prepare though. You might have to go out and get a job. You might have to do something else. But if you really are going to be a minister of God, you need to clear your house. You need to talk about the truth and see who leaves. Because those people who stay, who contain those racist attitudes, are poison to your congregation. They are not going to help it. They are going to keep you within racism. Racism is deeply spread throughout the American churches, and especially white congregations in this country. It is like pieces of sand spread through. It's there. And it can only be cleaned out when we talk about the realities, talk about these lynchings, talk about the horrificness, talk about the lies, talk about the indoctrination. And so any preacher who's willing to do that, good for you. But you are going to lose people. I guarantee you, in just maybe not every single church, but I guarantee you in most churches that are predominantly white, you're going to lose people. Even churches that have a certain amount of African Americans in it, we're talking about the truth, you're going to lose some of those white people. You might even lose a few black people who are kind of confused on certain issues, but you're going to lose a lot of white people. Now, if you lose them, you can build something. You can build something and actually be a church to do it. But too many preachers don't want to, say they actually do believe to a point on this stuff, they don't want to upset the boat because they're going to lose something out of it. Well, they're not really convicted. They don't care enough. And they're not pleasing God. So what's the point? If you really are a spiritual leader, if you really are a Christian, you will speak about these things. And if you don't know enough, you will find out where to learn about it. And if that church will fire you, you need to go someplace else where you can actually be a minister of God and not a minister over people who are racist and who are serving the devil. You cannot be a racist and serve God. You cannot get out of church and go to a lynching and brutalize and torture a person and want a souvenir from their body and please God. They did that all the time. And today we're doing the same thing, even if we're not cutting up souvenirs. By enforcing the lack of education, by enforcing all these things, by enforcing Donald Trump and his evil rhetoric, you are not pleasing God, you're pleasing the devil. When will you decide to do different? I'm not against Caucasian people. I am against racism. I'm against every Caucasian who decides to follow a racist path. But I'll talk to anybody I can. And I will encourage anybody to learn if they want to learn. But if you just want to maintain the status quo, go. That's what needs to happen. African Americans need to educate themselves and stand up. But we as poor whites, uneducated whites, need to stand up and educate ourselves too and join with them to build a country that really matters. And in our churches, to build a church that really means something. When a true integration of a church can happen. What is true integration? It's not when you have white people and then black people come in, but the white people are still in control of everything. That's not integration. That's like having somebody just submissive under you. A true integration would appreciate all the personalities that are there. We would all try to enrich each other through the scriptures. We would all try to grow to each other. We would select leaders not upon the color of their skin or the wealth of their pocketbook, but upon the character and the content of their hearts. If we truly want an integrated church, I'm beginning to believe that the only place that we can do this is starting with predominantly African American churches. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that some Caucasian churches out here can actually turn things around and be different. But don't be afraid to lose people. Maybe you're a church of 200 people. You might lose 25 people. Fine, you start again. You keep preaching it, and the people who come who have racist attitudes are going to do one of two things. They're going to change them, or they're going to leave. And you'll be left with people who are more sincere, more faithful, and build a church that really matters. And you can become known for something. And you can maybe build with other people welcome who will come in and who you will share leadership with, who you will share the mission with, who you will listen to what their experiences and the differences. When will we do that? Because the stuff we talked about today is sick, but it's not new. Human beings are capable of absolutely horrific things. Absolutely torturous, cruel, despicable things. We need God to change. And if you don't believe in God, fine, but you need to think about what you're doing. Because we can't follow this path and be really a decent person. It's not just about us. It's about the whole, about everybody. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American.